And we are off. Welcome, everyone. We'll give everyone about 5 minutes to jump in here before we get started. I've got my chat pulled up, so if you want to drop me a line in the chat, love to hear from you. How you doing? Hope everyone has enjoyed this week's events from Monday when we were talking all about mastering writing in Scrivener to Wednesday talking with and working with Pro Writing Aid and all the cool stuff they showed us in their app and how to perfect your prose. And then today about how to keep your novel on track, uh, particularly for Pantsers. So welcome. Bloody, good to see you again. Alex, good to see you. Marvin, welcome. You can't seem to hear anything? There might be an audio there, problem there, Marvin. Well, even if you can't hear us, hopefully you should be able to hear us. Um, hopefully you can get that figured out, Marvin. But I believe everything's coming through. I know Ruth can hear me. If you guys can hear me, give me a shout out. Hopefully everything's going well. Everything, evening from Austria, I did. Okay, perfect. Glad you got it figured out. You can hear me, Clark. Great. It's that's always like my worst nightmare is I'm gonna be talking and nobody can hear me. Usually my microphone is muted, but today it looks like we're moving right along. You can hear me. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Good to have you here from England, Mike. Bradley, welcome from Texas. And John, good. Okay, excellent. Julia, perfect. Awesome. Well, everyone's coming in. We'll give everyone a few minutes to jump in here. So, if you didn't know, the replays have been posted on my YouTube channel. Maybe I'll drop that link in here for you guys real quick. So you can have that. So the last two sessions are there. So check those out. I had a blast with Haley from Pro Writing Aid on Wednesday. We had so much fun there. So if you missed that one, please check it out. Such a great app, such a great company. And yeah, some pretty neat stuff there. So check out those replays. They're right there on my YouTube channel. Okay, let's see here. We'll get just things rolling here. Let me pull up real quick my notes before I get too far ahead of myself. Okay, yeah, we got a couple more minutes. We'll give everyone a little bit more time. So first off, I want to hear from you guys a little bit. I have a question for you. So now, if you could wave a magic wand right now, what's one thing you'd change about your writing process? Okay. And so whether you're a pantser, plotter, planter, wherever you are in the spectrum of writing, what's one thing you wish you could change about your writing process? Do you think that you just feel like isn't working? Okay, I'm gonna see if I can pull that up in the chat and see what's going on there. Be more consistent, says Marvin. Okay, yeah, I get that. I get that. I've been there. Yeah, that consistency issue. I tend to, um, what do you call it? When I have a project going on, I tend to want to work on nothing but that project. This is maybe unique to me. I don't know. But a lot of times I'll just write in spurts, right? I'll just be like, right, work on that project until I just can't work on it anymore. And it comes up like this kind of wave where I'm like working a lot, not working a lot, working a lot. And having a routine definitely helped with that. I do write daily now, which is great. But there's still moments where I'm like, man, is the routine doing enough? Do I need to be doing more? I get that feeling. Let's stop and start. Yeah. Uh, DeLewis says, I'd like to have a better structure since the beginning, even if I'm a plotter. Okay, so yeah, so you want to have some scaffolding there, right? To kind of a foundation to keep you, make sure you're like, hey, am I going in the right direction? Yeah. Mike says, committing to a narrative direction, there's often so many exciting, viable possibilities that it's hard not to fixate on those what ifs. Yeah, so yeah, at some point you kind of have to figure out, like, all these cool, this what if this, what if that. In fact, I've been guilty of, halfway through a story, I say, what if this? And then I look back and like, well, that is a really cool idea. And it sounds really cool right now. But if you look back to like the first like 20 chapters before this, I'd have to change a good 50% of that writing just to match this new idea. And so I definitely get caught up in the what ifs as I'm writing a lot. And so finding that balance, which what ifs to keep, which ones to get rid of. That's a tough call. Thank you for sharing that, Mike. John, just one thing, be able to finish things. Too often I write in spurts, and then after a drought, don't get back to it or don't remember why it was interesting to me. Occasionally I write myself into a corner. Yeah, that's a very common problem, John. I totally get that. I used to do that a lot. Just write myself into a hole. Basically, I'm like, I don't know how to get out of this. Um, and I think a lot of that comes with, just a lack of proper structure. If you remember from the last comment, yeah, just having a structure, and that structure doesn't have to dictate everything you do, but it just kind of gives you the key points, like the key plot points that gonna get you where you need to go, right? That beginning, middle, and end, the things that are happening in between, and then still, it just kind of gives you that scaffolding that holds you up, that foundation, right? John says, not getting distracted by new things I can incorporate into my process and just keep moving ahead and writing. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, that's a big one for me, John. Yeah, just, you know, whether it's a new project, right, on the horizon, like, ooh, this new project sounds more interesting than the one I'm currently on, or if it's a new idea within the project that could derail the whole story. Sometimes I have to really watch myself. In fact, I'm lucky that I have a good writers group that kind of draws my attention to Oliver, like, you're going off the wrong direction here. Maybe course correct. Sometimes you need somebody to kind of like wake you up, like slap across the face, right? It's like, oh, Oliver, you're going the wrong direction here. Stay on track. This could derail your story. Just sometimes I just need that reminder. Okay. Yeah, Alex says, "Oh, I understand that Oliver new ideas that could rewrite everything before." Yeah, they're cool. They sound cool, and to me, that if I'm going to rewrite everything before like that, it has to be an exceptional idea, right? Really amazing. But usually, what happens is it's not that great of an idea, or if it's a mediocre idea, I go change everything, and I'm like, "Oh, why did I do that? Wasn't worth it." And I wasted all this time. E. Bradley says, being afraid that trends shift will make what you're trying to say irrelevant or old or just not what others want by the time you finish. And the market saturates with what you're doing, so yours is going is it going to stand out enough? Oh, I hate that feeling. That one is that feeling like, oh, is this even relevant anymore? Why am I bother writing this? Is anyone going to want to read this? Yep, yep. Yeah, I would challenge that one a little bit. I believe strongly that you should write what you love, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't consider your market, and that doesn't mean that when you're ready to publish it, that it might not be oversaturated with what you're writing. You can certainly consider your market, and you probably should when writing a book. But ultimately, I think if you consider what the market is, what's selling right now, maybe where there's a hole in the market, all those things, and then you find something that you enjoy writing and you try to write for that, even if by the time you got to that point and the market's saturated, let's say, and it has tons of those books, you could either hold on to that book. I mean, there's a lot of different things you could do. You could hold on to it for a while. You could move on to the next thing. You could sell it and see how it does anyway. It's just it's tough. That's more of a business and entrepreneur question, right? Or concern, right? But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I totally get that concern, that feeling. Uh, okay. Oh, man, this is great. I ended up writing a whole book, Birth of the Goddess, to develop a world in which my novel takes place, which took time away from the action novel that I was working on, but I don't really regret it. It's nice. That's cool. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do one more and then we're gonna start here. We're about 10 minutes after the hour. I want to make sure we get right to our presentation. One other thing I throw in is that struggling with the actual skeleton of your story, even if you have all your themes, motivations, outcomes figured out, turning that into a fleshed out conflict that plays out in beats over time is tricky. In other words, getting lost in the big picture. So true, Mike. Yeah. Solving those big picture problems, and as we worked into the fifth draft of the Mark of the Shadow, which, I shared with you guys on Wednesday and I have previously, yeah, there's a lot of, I'm looking at this, we've written this 5 times now, and I'm thinking, like, why do we still have so many big picture problems? And so, yeah, it's hard. It really is hard, but hopefully we can figure this out. We can take away that sense of, feeling lost and use the tools that Scrivener has to kind of keep us focused and going in the right direction. Now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Actually, I guess I already got started here, but we're going to get started here. Let me see if I can pull my chat over to a different window so I can still see you guys chatting. And I'm hoping this will be a very interactive webinar experience today, guys. I want you guys to get involved, and I want us to kind of have a great discussion about how to keep our novel on track, or your novel on track as a pantser. Now, whether you're a plotter, pantser, while this is geared towards pantsers, people who write by the seat of their pants. I think there's something here for everyone. But let's go ahead and get started here. Now, I just want to say welcome, writers and creators, to our March Scrivener webinar series brought to you by the creative minds behind Scrivener and Scapple at Literature and Latte. I'm Oliver Evanson, your host today, bringing you insights drawn for over 15 years of writing and Scrivener expertise. Now, whether you are just starting out your writing adventure or are a seasoned author, our webinars are designed with your needs in mind. Now, today we'll be exploring how to keep your novel on track as a pantser. And for your convenience, a member of our dedicated support team stands ready to tackle any technical issues and answer your questions throughout the session. I have Ruth moderating today. So if you encounter any issues, please reach out to her in the Q&A. It'll make it a lot easier, but she will be keeping an eye on the chat as well. And for those of you who wish to revisit today's session or the previous sessions from this webinar series, please do so. We have these are being recorded. This one is also being recorded, and you can find the replay on my YouTube channel tomorrow, and also enjoy it ad-free next week in the Literature and Latte library. So links will be provided shortly. Watch out for those. Here we go. Now, if we have any people who don't know who I am, my name is Oliver Evanson. I'm a writer, editor, and mentor with 15 years of Scrivener and writing expertise. And I'm so excited to teach you what I've learned in my position as the outreach specialist for Literature and Latte to the creators of Scrivener and Scapple. Now, I absolutely love connecting with other like-minded writers like yourself. So if you'd like to connect with me, please send me an email, or better yet, join my email list. I frequently send out valuable tips and techniques to help you become a better writer and Scrivener user. And all subscribers receive a free copy of my free starter novel template. So check that out. And of course, if you'd like to see what I'm working on, that book I was just talking about, Mark of the Shadow, you could check it out at oliverevanson.substack.com, or use that QR code right there to get access to that. I got the first 10 chapters up there for free. And as I mentioned on Wednesday, the 5th draft is finished, although looking at it, it's still going to need a little bit more time. But we're getting close to the end here. We're planning to publish that towards the end of the year. So hurrah, hurrah. Hopefully you'll see that coming out here soon. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Ruth, for dropping those links for me. Okay, let's look at now that we're better acquainted, let's spend a few minutes outlining the agenda for today's session. Now, we'll kick things off with why Scrivener is such a versatile tool for pantsers. And whether you prefer to keep things simple or want to take advantage of its full set of features, Scrivener gives you that flexibility to shape your process in a way that works for you. You're in control every step of the way. Next, we'll explore and dive right into how to get started using Scrivener as a pantser and how to stay on track with your novel with a simple structure. From there, I'll give you an introduction to what I call the 5 sparks of story. I'll break down each spark, explaining what it means and why they're so valuable for pantsers looking to ignite their creativity and stay inspired throughout the writing process. And next up, we'll bring it all together by discussing how we can apply the 5 sparks within your story and use Scrivener to support your writing as a pantser and to keep things on track. Last but not least, we'll wrap it all up where I'll share some free resources that'll help you deepen your Scrivener know-how and continue improving your writing skills. And of course, we'll leave plenty of time for a Q&A session where I'll do my best to address your questions and help you with anything that's on your mind. Okay, so let's dive right in here. Okay. Let me move this out of the way real quick. There we go. Now, when most writers think about Scrivener, they often picture it as the ultimate tool for plotters. And to be fair, it is a dream come true for people who love to meticulously plan every scene, character, and plot point in their story. But guess what? You don't have to be a plotter to take full advantage of what Scrivener has to offer. Here's the thing that's about Scrivener that often gets overlooked. You get to decide how to use it. You don't have to explore every feature or incorporate every tool from day one. It's not an all or nothing situation. Instead, you can start with a super simple workflow that fits your writing process. And as you get more comfortable, you can add in the bells and whistles that really make sense for you. Now, you can think of Scrivener as a toolbox. If you're a pantser, maybe you don't need 10 different tools right away. Maybe you just want to start with a hammer and a screwdriver, say drafting in the editor or using the corkboard for a high-level look at your scenes. Later, you might discover how much fun it is to experiment with labels, keywords, or the Project Architect feature, for example. The point is, Scrivener adapts to you, not the other way around. Now, it's also worth saying Scrivener works wonderfully for writers who want freedom, not just on the page, but in their process. Scrivener lets you stay flexible, explore your ideas and adjust as you go. And when you're ready to incorporate more tools to keep track of everything, Scrivener's right there waiting to make your life easier. And at the end of the day, whether you're a plotter, pantser, or somewhere in between, Scrivener is as simple as complex as you need it to be. There's no right or wrong way here to use it, and that's exactly what makes it such a fantastic tools for all kinds of writers, including pantsers. Okay. All right. Now that we've talked about how flexible Scrivener can be, let's roll up our sleeves and actually get started. The first step to bringing your story to life is creating your project. And don't worry, that part super duper easy. You can start by creating a project, choosing a template that fits your needs. I highly recommend my free starter novel template for a clean, straightforward setup. And giving your project a title. This title doesn't have to be perfect, but try to make it as specific enough to capture the essence of your story or inspire you as you work. It does not have to be that final title. In fact, as you'll see from my own personal project, it was originally called something else. It went through several titles before we finally settled on one that we felt like this is it. Now, this first step is all about giving you a solid foundation to build on. Think of it as setting up your creative headquarters where all your ideas and drafts will live. It's quick, easy, and gets you one step closer to getting those words on the page. All right, enough talk. Let's see it in action. I'll walk you through the process live, and we will get on with it here. Okay, let me. Now just checking in. Can everyone see my screen here? Should be a nice blue screen and a pull up Scrivener. Yes, thank you, Ronnie. Appreciate it. Okay, perfect. So when I first pop open Scrivener, I have it set to come into my writing mentor section. These are the templates I typically use the most, of the templates I've made for myself and for you guys. But you can see we have tons of great options here. In fact, if you're just writing a fiction novel right there, you could easily use the built-in fiction template novel just by clicking fiction, clicking novel, either double clicking it or clicking this create button right here. Now, for our purposes, you can see I actually have a couple different ones. This template right here, the Panster's Novelist Compass, is one I designed based on the presentation today. We will look at that a little bit earlier, but for now, we're actually going to start out with my free template, the Starter Novel template. Let's go ahead and open that up here. And so, okay, guys, give me a working title here. I want to hear from you guys. Throw me a title in the chat. I'm going to use that for our wrap today because ideally, whenever we're creating a new project, we want a good working title. Typically, I'm not great at coming up with those on the spot, but we want something that gets us thinking about what the story is going to be about. So, Marvin says Days Unseen. Okay, that's cool. Let's see what else we got. Definitely not the definite type. I like that. That's fun. That's fun. Vampires in London. Okay, good, good. I'm seeing what you guys like to write here. Okay, vampires. That's fun. Okay, you know what? Why not? Let's take the vampires in London here. Thank you. And if you throw in a title, I don't use it, that's fine. I'll probably use them for something else later. Oh, come on. Doesn't want to work. Paste. There we go. Got it in there. The Warlock and the Battle Axe. The Servant of the Heron. Oh, I like that. Those are fun. Okay. So we'll start with Vampires in London. Let's go ahead and click Create. Boom, that pops that up. Takes us into our activation guide here. Now, whether you could use a blank template for this, you can use my Starter Novel template. If you have my, if you're a subscriber to my Substack, you can get access to the Panzer Novel Compass as well on my website there. So check that out. But whatever you're using, just find something that works, get started, and get in here and let's get to work on it. So we've got our title name. I did save mine on my desktop here. That's not ideal, right? Ideally, let me show you where we should save those. We're going to a new project again real quick. Ideally, we want to save it somewhere where we save all of our Scrivener projects. That might be documents, a folder called Scrivener projects. That might be in Dropbox. Typically, if we're saving in Dropbox, I save it in apps and Scrivener right there. And that's the Scrivener projects I have access to on my iPhone, iPad, PC, everything. Anything that I want to have access to everywhere, that's where I save those. Okay, but main thing is you got a good, decent title here to get you started. Okay, perfect. And that's it. Once you've done that, you've set up your project, you're ready to get started working. Now, of course, if you're using the activation guide or the novel template, you can read through these little guides here that kind of help you get started and tell you how the template works. If you're using a blank template, you can literally just write a new document and get started here. But let's shift back to the presentation and see what's next. Okay. Now that we've got our project set up, it's time to talk about structure. Now, I remember earlier a lot of people were mentioning like, just having a structure, something, a scaffolding, something to get me from point A to point B, from beginning to end without feeling like I'm lost, right? And honestly, structure is your secret weapon for staying organized and keeping ideas flowing. And the best part, Scrivener makes it incredibly easy to create structure that works for your unique writing process. Okay. Now, one great way to do this is by setting up folders for different parts of your story or ideas. Now, for example, you could create folders like a potential scenes folder for those sparks of inspiration that kind of pop in your head, story seeds for raw ideas you're still exploring, scenes I want to write for the moments you're eager to bring to life, and even like plot points or plot beats to map out the key moments or the structure of your story. I like to think of that if you use this like the Save the Cat plot structure or the three-act structure or the hero's journey or any number of those wonderful structures that exist out there. This could be a place where you kind of organize your beats, like your plot points, right? These folders act as a home for your creativity, so nothing gets lost in the shuffle, but you also don't feel like you're tied to any particular structure yet. You're just kind of throwing out ideas and trying to find some order in the chaos. And this is how I keep my scenes and everything's organized so I don't lose track of everything. So by having a clear structure, you'll always know where to put your ideas and where to find them when you need them later. And that's key. Half the battle of being a pantser, especially if you're just kind of creating scenes like this left and right, is, especially digitally here on a computer, how do we find that research? How do we find that scene that we made like a week ago, and it's somewhere in my project. I can't find it. That's what this comes in, keeping a very simple structure to store these things so you don't have to go wandering, searching your project trying to find it. Now, it helps you avoid that overwhelming feeling of juggling too many thoughts at once. Instead, you'll have a clean, organized workspace, making it easier to focus on what really matters, the story you've been dreaming of telling. Now, remember, this structure is not set in stone. That's probably a big deal for pantsers. You don't want to feel like you're tied down to anything, right? It's a kind of a structure that's meant to evolve as your story grows and changes. And you just need to start out with what feels right and adjust as you discover what works best for you. So let's give it a try. This is pretty simple, but we're going to just give it a try and see how this might look. I'm going to share over here. Go back to, oops, actually, before I do that, let me switch over to that. And now we're ready to share. There we go. Okay. Okay, let me turn off Pro Writing Aid everywhere. I don't need that right now. Okay. So, potential scenes. If I were to start with this, how might I do this? Now, I could do this directly in my draft folder if I wanted. I could create a separate folder here like so and just call it tools or something. I don't know. Up to you. But essentially, we just need a simple folder structure that has like potential scenes, right? Let's do this. Scenes and story seeds. Right. Create another one called Scenes I Want to Write. Right. And then plot beats, right? Like so. And let's take these guys right here. I'll select them real quick and just drag and drop them into tools. Now I could store them here. I could store them in the draft folder, wherever you want is fine. Main reason why I'm kind of avoiding storing them in the draft folder itself because I like to think of that draft folder as that's what I'm going to be exporting out of Scrivener to share with someone, or ideally what actually has made it into the manuscript. And so typically these things, they haven't quite made it there yet. They're not there yet. They don't have a home or a place yet. So this is where I'm going to keep them so I can find them. I want them in a folder too, so I can kind of close it up when I don't want to have those right next to me. And so I might come in here, create those four simple folders, and then I can go ahead and start adding in some chapters or scenes. Maybe we'll actually, instead of doing a chapter template, let's move that to trash. Let's just do scenes. Okay, we'll just choose a scene here like so. And I could then duplicate that. I'm going to right click, duplicate, and see I could just throw a couple of these in here like this. Duplicate, drop, duplicate, drop. If you're wondering how I did that, it's Command D on a Mac. It should be probably Control on a PC. But there we go. Like that, we have one, two, three, four. And if you looked at those now there in my potential scenes, is a lovely scene template that I could come in here and say, okay, this is the scene I want to write. Maybe we have I want to write about the warlock and the battle axe, right? Oops, let me pull that. Boom. Once again, specific names really helps out there. But that's really the gist of it. We're going to get to a little bit more of this in a minute, so I'm getting ahead of myself real quick. But that's essentially it. I create 4 key folders. You can name them whatever you want. Maybe there's some other folders or other ideas or concepts you want to capture as a pantser. If you have any ideas, throw it out to me. I'd love to hear it in the chat. Um, so, uh, yeah, just having, unique names. If there's, I couldn't think of any other potential ways I wanted to kind of break these ideas up. Those 4 key folders were kind of the big things for me. But yeah, this one gives me an idea to just kind of create as I come up with potential scenes and ideas. I throw them in here. If I have story seeds, things that think might be a scene or might be useful, maybe those what if questions we talked about. Usually, if I have an idea for a what if, I'm like, ooh, what if that would be really cool? I throw it into the story seed section and I kind of explore what I can. That allows me to explore that idea. Maybe I can create a bunch of different scenes around it and see how that would work before I actually integrate it into my series or into my book, right? And then I have the scenes that I'm just desperately dying to write. Like I thought maybe they're the reason I thought up this story idea in the first place. And so I put them in there, and probably those are the ones I even write first because one, it's fun, right? I want to write scenes I want to write, and then go around and see, hey, do any of these other potential scenes work with the ones I wanted to write, the ones that are now being moved down in, and of course, then I can actually create scenes that are based on the specific plot structure. If I'm using Save the Cat, I can have an opening image, a theme stated, a catalyst, right? A break into Act Two, those kind of things, right? I could literally plan those out there, and then kind of look at them all together and decide what's actually going to be dragged and dropped into the actual book. If that makes sense. Okay. So there you go. That's essentially it. Let's go ahead and close those up. And let's jump back into the presentation. Okay. Now let's jump right into one of my favorite storytelling tools. I call it the 5 sparks of story. And I'm sure there's different names for different things as to what this is, but it's pretty simple. I love it as a pantser because it kind of just gives me enough to get me started. It gives me a foundation that's flexible enough to fit my style as a pantser, but strong enough to keep my story focused. So I kind of think of it as a creative compass that guides me through my writing and still leaving room for discovery. Now, the first let's see. Let me get that pulled up real quick. There it goes. So the first spark is called provocative. So every story needs that hook, that thorny question, situation, or conflict that kind of demands attention. And this is where you stir your readers or your own curiosity and make yourself think, or your reader think, ooh, what happens next? Now, the key thing here is don't overthink it. Just go with something that kind of stirs your curiosity. It should be something that you're interested in, right? So if you have an idea for a thorny question or something that makes you think, ooh, what happens next? Drop it in the chat for me. I'd love to. I'm going to read through those when we dive back into Scrivener. Okay. So here's an example I came up with. Imagine a character wakes up with no memory whatsoever, but everyone else around them knows who they are, and some people even seem to know this character's darkest secrets. So right away, that wasn't a question. I know it's more of a statement, but right away, you've created tension, mystery, and a story full of questions begging to be answered. Anyway, I like the no memory plot. It's fun. Okay. The next spark is layered. Okay. So now that you have a story spark or kind of a hook to get you or your reader interested, it's time to dig a little deeper. Follow the story to see where it leads. You can ask yourself questions like, what's beneath the surface? You don't need to plan it all out. Just brainstorm different ideas that add depth to your story. So, for example, maybe the memory loss in this and the example I just gave isn't just a plot twist. It might be connected to a larger government conspiracy or something. Perhaps some characters even use your main character's past to leverage them as leverage to get them what they want. The beauty here is you get to kind of play around with and discover the hidden layers, so to speak. Obviously, they don't exist yet, but you can build those layers to be whatever you want. And I love as a pantser, you kind of get to think of those layers and kind of pick and choose the ones that you think would be best for your story. I think most writers do that in one form or another, but as a pantser, we're a little bit more intentional about it. We have all these index cards and things, and we can come up with all these different ideas and things and layers that we're interested in, and then we get to kind of pick and choose the ones we want to develop and we feel like will work more. And we don't get rid of the other ones, right? We keep them just in case. You never know; they might come back and serve useful at some point. Okay, my third spark here is personal. And at the heart of your story, it needs to matter deeply to your main character. The stakes should feel personal to the hero, driving their actions, forcing their growth. Focus on the personal stakes of the situation. Who is most affected by the conflict? How does it impact them emotionally, mentally, physically? So let's take it. Let's continue with the same idea, right? So let's continue. So imagine our hero is betrayed by one of their closest friends, someone who clearly knows more than what they're letting on, right? It's kind of juicy. So these personal moments give readers a reason to care and invest in your character's journey. So we can see we're kind of layering this out, kind of building out, and we've made it personal to our hero. The next up, our fourth spark is the ethical dilemma. This is where things get really interesting. Every story has great moments or has moments where characters face tough choices without clear right or wrong answers. There's kind of morally gray things. And these moments create tension to keep the readers on the edge of their seats. So, for instance, what if our protagonist here had decided to trust someone who's been lying to them all along? It might be the only chance, maybe it's their only chance to survive, but is it worth the risk, right? So perhaps this person, uh, perhaps the person your protagonist thought they could trust was actually working against them. All these kind of back and forth things you can kind of consider. Ethical dilemmas like this add complexity and drama. Who doesn't love drama, right? And helps you explore the deeper themes naturally within your story. You notice here we're not like creating any like solid structure yet. This whole concept is kind of just built on the idea. We're just kind of generating ideas and kind of seeing, looking at these five key things and how they can contribute to our story. And last but not least, we have emotionally charged. And every story needs an emotional stake. Who stands to win or lose everything? Why is it so urgent? Why do they even need why do they need to do anything? Why can't they just, well, it has to be strong enough that it feels urgent. When your emotions run high, your readers feel it. And at the end of the day, that's what sets a good story apart from a great story. Fear, love, anger, hope, desperation. These feelings drive your character's actions and give heart to your story. So look for ways to amplify those emotions in key moments. So for example, our protagonist's desperation to uncover the truth might clash with the fear of what they'll find. That push and pull of conflicting emotion can keep the story dynamic and hook the reader on a deeper level. Okay. And last but not least, I call this the author spark. It's not really, I guess, one of the five sparks, so to say, but I think it's probably the most important things of all is that you, the author, are genuinely curious and excited about the question or conflict at the heart of your story. If it's sparking your imagination, that energy will carry through to your readers. And so think about what keeps you coming back to your story, what fascinates you. I remember someone mentioned earlier that, sometimes that shiny idea from either it's a new idea that completely changes the whole novel, which might be your subconscious saying you want to write something a different novel because you're just sick of this book, or that you're looking at a project that you haven't started yet, like, oh, I'd like to start working on that. I think when that happens, a lot of times we've lost focus on why we started writing this book in the first place. We've lost the author's spark, right? We don't really we're no longer dying to uncover the next curiosity about this book. So to some degree, we have to find out how to keep that excitement and curiosity, but we also want to make sure that it's there to begin with. If we have that excitement and curiosity in the part of the process, it makes it rewarding not only for the reader but also for us, the writer, who is writing it, right? So when you're intrigued, you'll stay motivated. You want to explore those twists and turns and challenge your plot, and even when the writing feels messy or uncertain. So remember, some of the best stories come from that sense of wonder and discovery. Hold on to it, and your story will feel alive, not just to you, but to anyone who reads it. So together, these five sparks, they don't write the story for you. They just kind of give you that boost, that springboard to get you started. They fuel your creativity, deepen your story, and keep you focused on what really matters. And the best part, you don't need to have all the answers at the start. Just keep these sparks in mind as you write, and you'll discover your story, start your story along the way. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's do it. Okay. Now it's time to bring it all together. Okay. Here's an example of how you could use Scrivener alongside the five sparks method to craft your next story step by step. Okay. Okay. So with a simple structure in place, we can head to the corkboard and jot out loose scenes for an idea. I like to begin with the end in mind. You don't have to, right? It's not a requirement by any means, but I love having a clear ending point. It helps me kind of figure out what my middle might be, what my beginning might be, why I'm starting it here at the beginning. And, it just, I love that concept to begin with the end of the mind. It may not work for everyone, but it's a good thing to do. We can add in keywords for supporting characters as they're created. We can assign labels for viewpoint characters, a big one that I use all the time. We can save ideas in the key folders as they come. Remember those four key folders we talked about earlier. And we can set project and session targets to give you a clear idea of when you're done. That's also a key point. We want to make sure that we keep the momentum going, but we also want to know, like, hey, this is a point where this is a stopping point. Sometimes I feel like as a pantser, and especially with the editing process, as we learned on Wednesdays, we don't always have a clear idea of where to end, where to stop. And so giving ourselves some benchmarks, some structure in place that says, hey, this is when I reach this point, I'm done, I'm finished. That's a good way, a good thing to do, a good thing to have in mind. That's why I like to begin with the end with mine. Because if I have an idea of where my ending is, I can feel confident at least, hey, I'm working towards something and I can see the end, even if I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Let's go ahead and switch back to Scrivener. Let's take a look at this workflow and how it might work. Perfect. Okay, so we're back here. First off, we're going to jump into our tools here that we just created up. We have our scenes, right? Story seeds, scenes I want to write, and plot beats. So ideally, one thing as a pantser that I absolutely love is we use this corkboard view right here. You can see we're in it right now. Right now, we just have the one scene. If we switch over to Scrivener's view, it would just show all the documents that are stored there, group mode, corkboard, and the outliner. We can kind of see the scene itself, right? And in this kind of outliner view. Now, personally, when I'm planning scenes, I like the index cards because I can actually come in here, I can give titles, I can create new scenes, go add, I can use my templates here, or I can just add new text, up to you. Go ahead and use a template. And I can give it scene titles. Let's go ahead and see if we can grab some, shout out some titles for me. I have some earlier. This is about vampires in London. Okay. Days Unseen. I love this. I can right click right here, click add, new from template. So I can either do that down here in the bottom left corner with this little icon right there, or I can just right click anywhere in my corkboard and click add, new from template or new text like this. The dark alley. Okay, good. I like that. Boom. Okay. And I can do this as many times as I want. So let's say I have some story seeds here. Let's open these up so we can see them all. We can, yeah. So we could, let's see if I can come up with some more. If you guys have any more scene ideas, give me some story seeds. Scenes. What are some scenes that some scenes you would really interested in writing? So I'm gonna write one here. The all is lost moment. All is lost moment. Okay, now ideally they come with a better name than that, right? But that's just a scene I like to write. I actually would probably come down here in my plot beat section. That all is lost moment. I'm always eager to write that scene because it's such a gripping, powerful scene, you know. Um, the all is lost. Toothache. Thank you. Okay, why not? We'll throw it in here. The story seeds. Oops, didn't get it. Toothache. Vampires in London, maybe then. Right? Okay, but hopefully you're seeing the idea here. I can come in here, I can write summaries of the scene, like so, right? And so I can just come up here and have this higher level view of all the scenes I'm working on. I can move them in and out when I'm ready to say, hey, this still scene here, I think it belongs down here in book one now. I can drag and drop it in like so, and boom, there it goes. And okay, I can move it back. And now you see that flexibility there allows me to kind of decide when a scene is ready to be dropped in into the structure of my project. Okay. I can move that here. Once I've got some scenes here, maybe I could even start developing chapters. Maybe another one here might be another folder that I haven't considered is chapters, right? Okay. And so maybe a scene, two scenes, I feel like these two scenes go together. And so I'm actually going to put them in as a chapter in my chapters folder. And I'll probably come together and just call it chapter like this. Maybe even give it a name or something. It's just something you could do. Okay. Just a thought that's occurred to me right now. And so then I could then decide, okay, this chapter here is what's about the Warlock, the Battle Axe. We'll just call it the Heron. Risen or something like that, right? And I could then, build out chapters in this way, right? Build out scenes first, build out chapters, and then when I feel like a chapter is ready to drop in, I could just drag and drop it into my act folder, like so, and then I have a chapter built in right there, ready to go. Tied hands, thank you, I like that. So we could come here. Oops, I can't see that. Zoom is in the way. So we can make this big. There we go. What was it doing? We have the pommel speaks, tied hands. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Enola. If I pronounced your name wrong, I apologize. Oops. For some reason, Zoom does not like to copy. There we go. And did I get tied hands? I can't remember. Copy like that. And so on and so on. You can see that that's how I would do that. And that's a very super simple approach, but it's very effective and works really, really well. Now, there's more we could do here. If you have plot beats and things like that, you could literally come in here and just create a bunch of these. Let's just duplicate. I'm going to do right click duplicate or use a shortcut like I'm going to do here, Command D. Okay. I could come in here and I could write in, I'm really familiar with Save the Cat. So I'm going to do opening image. I'm going to do theme stated. We're going to do setup. And what else? If you guys are familiar with the Save the Cat beats, shout them out to me because I'm forgetting off the top of my head. We have Catalyst. I'm probably going to miss some. Catalyst, break into two, or we have debate. I feel like I'm missing something. Break into two. We could go through, we could literally write these all out like so, right? And build out the entire thing and then come through and say, okay, I'm in my corkboard here. What is the opening image? Okay. So if I wanted a little bit more structure, this is probably how I would do it. Now, would I keep these just like this? No, I'm going to consider these as scenes. And so even though I've renamed this opening image, theme stated, and things like that, I consider them scenes, and I'll probably move them back and forth. This might start out as an opening image that moves into a potential scene that becomes, it grows into something different until it finally ends up as a chapter for finally coming into the final draft, and how that whole process is really up to you. You could do it all in the plot beats folder here and then drag and drop it directly into your draft folder. There's no right or wrong answer here. Just find a way that makes sense to you and do it. The main thing I'm hoping to help you with is just try to find a sense of structure here so you don't feel like totally lost. You're like, where's all my stuff going? How, I want to have key places to keep my things, right? Perfect. Now, just to give you an example here, now I've done some work on your behalf. If you want to, you can get this lovely template here. It's called the Panster Novel Compass. We'll call this, once again, I'm not great for working titles. We'll grab the Warlock one. I like that, the Warlock and the Battle Axe. Thank you, Ruth. That was a fun one. Boom, like so. And we're going to drop that once again. I'm going to create it on my desktop, but you should save it in your documents or Dropbox. Actually, let's just go ahead and save it into Scrivener projects here, like so. And what this is, it's very similar to the zero to first draft template for those of you who are familiar with that in terms of how to use it, right? But it is a very different method. So we have this activation guide here that kind of shows you what it's all about, how to get started. We have our Panster's toolbox with all these fun things in it, series Bible, plot points, the scenes, everything that we just kind of talked about to some degree with a little bit extra involved here. Okay, including that 5 sparks method right there. We have our series book one that's stayed pretty close to this. Yeah, pretty much the same. We have some more project tools, templates, and things available there, as well as we have a nice, neat scraps folder or trash folder where we keep all our scraps and things. And I like to keep things organized here. So you can see like my scrap folders here. I have like a deleted scenes section, a darlings I've killed. Oh man, those are the story seeds that I'm like, okay, this was a really cool idea. I don't want to delete it permanently, but I'm not using it. So it gets stuck in my darlings killed. Scenes I didn't like that or just didn't fit in the story. Once again, I don't delete anything. I keep it all because you never know. You might want to come back. Plot points replaced like that. And other fun things. And there's lots of cool things built into this. In fact, if you look at the plot points, I have a whole structure set up here as well with keywords assigned. Also, all sorts of fun stuff. If you want to check that out, you can find that at ogevanson.com/links to see what that whole thing is all about. But I just want to show you, if you want, you can definitely do that. You can build it yourself in the starter novel template absolutely for free, or you can check out this template I have available on my website. Okay. Well, let's see. Well, what's that? We're at 12:47. Yeah, we're at time. I'm going to go ahead and switch back. We're going to wrap up a few things. And of course, if there are any questions at that point, we'll dive into it. There are tons of other great practical tools and techniques and things you can use with Scrivener. But I wanted to keep this one really simple. And hopefully that gives you an idea as a pantser how to get started and keep yourself on track with a very simple structure. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now, every day I am so inspired by the passion and dedication of writers like you honing your craft. And supporting you on your journey as an author and watching you grow is truly rewarding. And so if you're looking for more resources and tools I personally recommend, you can head over to ogevanson.com/links to explore everything you need to take your writing to the next level. And if you're not already part of the Turning Writers, oops, wrong button. If you're not already part of the Turning Writers into Author community yet, join today by subscribing to my insider newsletter and unlock exclusive perks like Scrivener tools, writing training, and my free Scrivener starter novel template, which we looked at today. And of course, don't wait. Jump into ogevanson.com/links to turn your writing dreams into a reality. And of course, we have so many great resources. Aside from that, we have our full webinar library with not kidding, well over 100 webinars now, all with great tips and techniques and guides and things to get you where you need to go. We have our user forum where other users like yourself are giving their advice and the things that have worked for them. We have user manuals to get you through the technical questions you may have. We also have blogs and video tutorials available at literatureandlatte.com and ogevanson.com/tools. So check those out. And we even have a full knowledge base with all those technical questions you may have and free technical support. So reach out to us. We're happy to help you. Okay. So let's open the floor for any questions you may have. I'm happy to address any concerns or confusion or questions you may have regarding Scrivener and its features, as well as provide tips and advice for using it effectively in your writing. So don't be shy. Ask away. All that. And there's those emails for you too if you have any questions. So I know it says I have a whole Scrivener project just for dealing skills. I like that. I like that. Oh, that sounds about right. Yeah, I could totally see that. Uh, that would Ruth is right. That would be interesting to read through and see if any of them fit together. Oh, I love that. I love that idea. And that's why I don't get rid of any of my darlings or any of my things, any of those deleted scenes and things like that, because you just never know. Especially when you're just like, I don't know what to write next. Sometimes I just peruse through old writing and see if there's anything of interest there. Hey Sharon, if you're having trouble with that, why don't you send me an email at contact@ojaevanson.com com. I don't know why. I've had several people email me recently that they're having a hard time subscribing to my Substack. So I will just send me an email. I will get you subscribed and set up and everything ready to go manually if it's not working. Yeah, sometimes technology is annoying. I love Substack. It's been a really great resource and it's excellent, but it's not without flaws. And it seems to me I'm noticing more and more problems with it. I may be switching to a new email system here soon. So I'll definitely be keeping my Substack. I love it. It's great, but I may have to switch to a more reliable uh, autoresponder because it's not working like how I'd like. Anyway, great. Any other questions? Yeah, if you're having trouble with that, let me know. Send me an email. Just drop my email in there. I can happily help you guys get subscribed and all that, and get you things going. Yeah, I mean a lot of stuff Substacks and thinking of starting my own. That's great, Sharon. That's great. It's a great community over there on Substack. If any of you are currently over there, uh, great. Connect with me. I'd love to hear from you guys, hear what you're doing, see what you're writing and read and what you're reading, and share that with me. But if you're not in Substack, a lot of fun. It's a great start, great place to start a platform as a writer. I wouldn't have it as your home base, like the main place you do everything, but I definitely think having a presence there is important, and it's becoming more and more important as more and more writers flock to that platform. So check it out. Let's see. Let me look in the Q&A and see if I missed anything. Look, I'm seeing more Q&A. So I know I was asking any tips about how to decide what ifs will make it into the manuscript. Ooh, that's a good question. So when I think about what ifs enter come into my manuscript, I that's when I start thinking about structure. I know what. And so I think of the best way to, yeah, I start thinking about structure. I start thinking about how I can take these, which one, first off, which one sparks the most interest in me? That's where I start. What is the one that this is the most interesting? That's where it goes into the scenes I want to write section where I'm like, oh, I want to write about this. And this really is an interesting idea to me. And I'll start writing about it, right? I'll just dive right into it and write it. And sometimes I'll do a couple of those, a bunch of what ifs and just see which one makes sense. I might write a couple scenes, and some of them might get deleted. I might not ever actually use them, but it kind of gives me a feel for what the story is and what I, as a writer, want to explore and where I want it to grow. And then I start thinking in terms, okay, structure, plot beats. Where does this fit into the story, right? So I might look at is this an opening image? Is this a setup? Is this a catalyst? Is this is this where is this fit in the story? Is this the ending? Is this the all is lost moment? And there may not be a clear this is this beat or this is this plot point, but I do my best to try to kind of figure that out. And then I can kind of start building around that, right? And start fleshing out other ideas. It might give me other ideas for other scenes. That might give me other ideas for other beats and plot beats that I need to figure out and go from there. But that's just my personal process. Everyone's gonna might be a little bit different. You might try something. You might try it and see if it's helpful. Hopefully that helps you out. Okay, let's see here. Uh, ba, ba, ba. Marvin says I submitted my email, but I've gotten the link to the template. Thank you, Marvin. Send me an email. I'll get you taken care of. Just to be sure, I'm gonna screenshot these two, so make sure we got you guys. I'll be looking for your emails, okay, from Marvin and Sharon to see if you got see if so I can get you set up for that. Alex says, any recommendations on how long a scene within a chapter should be? Sometimes I feel like I have too long a scene. Yeah, yeah. So from a purely technical perspective, I mean, I typically aim from a range of 750 words to 1,500 words. But to be fair, let me show you. Let me share my screen here. Uh, let's go into Mark of the Shadow here. As a reminder, this is a good example. It used to be called The Otter and the Amulet. It's now called Mark of the Shadow. Went through several different names before we decided on that. But let's just look at some of the scene lengths for this book here. So we come in here. This scene is the first chapter. There is one scene inside of it. It's 2,800 words. And it's totally acceptable, right? Come down here. This scene is 1,195, 565. This one is 13,000. So I'm sure I could go and do some math and figure out like what the average length is, but just from just general writing and just having written so many scenes, I found that typically I'm ranging anywhere from that 750 to 1,500. Sometimes I go more, sometimes I go less. And there's really no right or wrong way of doing it. The main thing probably to look out for is your pacing. Do you lose interest? Like if it's a longer chapter like this one, okay? Are you or your readers losing interest as you go through the scene? Are there ways that you could cut it down, right? Or, maybe even though it's long, maybe it needs more, these are don't really solve your problem there, Alex, but they kind of, can help you determine where you're at. For example, this scene right here, um, I think actually it runs a little long. I read through it recently, and my co-writer read through it recently, and even as part of that manuscript analysis we did on Wednesday, it had noted that this specific chapter was was a bit long-winded, I guess you could say. And I think it's a great chapter, but does that mean that we need to cut back on it? Maybe, maybe not. We might have to just look and see what needs to be kept, what needs to go. The main thing is you get to decide, right? You get to make that decision. And it's not always a clear cut. Unfortunately, it's not like, oh, yes, this is the exact word count. It's perfect for this scene or this moment or whatever. Um, One thing I do think about a lot is people's engagement today and their what do you call it, attention span is a lot less. I don't know if any of you have noticed, like a lot of movies recently. I think of the one that really kind of shook me a little bit was the new Ant-Man movie a while back now. It's been at least a year, I think now, and how quickly they just dived right through all the setup. The setup was like basically non-existent. It was like a little bit of setup and then immediate catalyst, which admittedly is you can do early catalysts and things like that, but it just felt like there was no setup time whatsoever. We're just immediately thrown into the Act Two world, and then they had a new character actress playing his daughter, and for me, it just didn't work. I felt like I had been shortchanged at the beginning of the story, and I wasn't invested in any of the characters, even though I had a good investment from the previous Ant-Man movies, right, for the main characters. The movie was one of the new leads was such a key character. I just didn't care about her that much. And so I don't know, things like that. Yep. You're welcome, Alex. I'm glad you don't feel so iffy about it anymore. Yeah, it's one of those things. Don't feel bad about it. Pacing can be tricky, but you know, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. Okay. Awesome, guys. Let's see here. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So I think we will call it a day. What time is it? We're about 3 minutes to the hour anyway. So thank you so much for coming. Hope you enjoyed this session. Let me go ahead and wrap it up here and we'll be on our way. Once again, there are those emails right there. I think I'm missing one. Yep, there's my email address like there. If you couldn't get access to my template for whatever reason, didn't go through, you didn't get the email, just send me an email at contact@ogevans.com. If you have any Scrivener related questions, those emails are right there available for you. And I just want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for dedicating your time and energy to this webinar. Your participation has truly been inspiring, and it's been an honor to support you on your writing journey. So I hope the tools and insights shared today will help you to empower you and elevate your writing craft using Scrivener. Please remember our commitment to supporting your creative endeavors doesn't end here. Our team is always available to assist you as you explore and harness Scrivener's full potential. So stay connected with us. Be sure to check out our upcoming webinar series next month for more educational, inspiring content. Until next time, write on and stay creative. Thank you, everyone.